The rain hammered against the windows of the small apartment like tiny fists demanding entry. Marcus wiped his hands on a worn dish towel and glanced at the clock above the kitchen sink. 7:30. His daughter Emma would be getting hungry soon, and the leftover mac and cheese from 2 nights ago was looking less appetizing by the hour. Marcus had been a single father for 3 years now, ever since his wife Sarah had passed away from cancer. The transition from being part of a team to handling everything alone had been the hardest thing he'd ever faced. Some days, like today, the weight of responsibility felt heavier than usual. The bills were piling up on the kitchen counter. His car was making that grinding noise again, and Emma's school shoes were getting too small. But when Emma smiled at him with a gap-toothed grin and told him about her day, all the struggles seemed manageable. She was his anchor, his reason to keep pushing forward when everything felt overwhelming. The knock on the door came just as Marcus was heating up their modest dinner. 3 soft taps, barely audible over the storm outside. He frowned, checking the time again. Who would be visiting at this hour, especially in weather like this, through the peephole? He saw a young woman standing in the hallway. She was soaked through, her blonde hair plastered to her head, and she was shivering visibly. She looked to be in her early 20s, wearing what had once been nice clothes but were now wrinkled and damp from the rain. Marcus hesitated for a moment. Living in the city had taught him to be cautious about strangers, but something about the girl's posture suggested vulnerability rather than threat. She looked lost, maybe even scared. He opened the door, leaving the chain latch engaged. "Can I help you?" The girl looked up at him with wide, tired eyes. "I'm so sorry to bother you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was wondering, is there any chance I could use your phone? Mine died, and I can't get home." Marcus studied her face. There was something genuine about her distress, something that reminded him of Emma when she was frightened. He glanced back toward the kitchen where his daughter was coloring at the small table, humming softly to herself. "Where do you live?" he asked. "About 20 minutes from here," she said. "I was supposed to meet a friend, but they never showed up. I waited for hours, and now I don't have money for a cab or bus fare." The girl shivered again, and Marcus felt his resolve weakening. He'd been in tough spots before, had relied on the kindness of strangers more than once since Sarah's death. How could he turn someone away when they needed help? "Look," he said, and latching the chain, "why don't you come in and dry off? You can use the phone, and maybe I can help you figure out how to get home." Relief flooded her features. "Thank you so much. I promise I won't be any trouble." Marcus stepped aside to let her in. "I'm Marcus," he said, closing the door behind her. "I'm Sophia," she replied, wrapping her arms around herself. "Daddy, who's that?" Emma appeared in the doorway, her coloring book clutched in her small hands. She was 6 years old with curly, brown hair that perpetually escaped whatever hair time Marcus attempted each morning. "This is Sophia, sweetheart. She's going to use our phone and dry off a bit." Emma studied Sophia with the frank curiosity that only children possessed. "You're all wet," she observed. Sophia managed a small smile. "Yes, I got caught in the rain." "I'll get you a towel," Marcus said, already heading toward the bathroom. When he returned, he found Emma showing Sophia her coloring book, chattering away about the purple elephant she'd been working on. "Emma, give Sophia some space," Marcus said gently, handing Sophia the towel. "It's okay," Sophia said, accepting the towel gratefully. "She's lovely." As Sophia dried her hair, Marcus noticed details he'd missed at the door. Her clothes, while wet and wrinkled, were clearly expensive. Her shoes, though muddy, looked like they cost more than Marcus made in a week. There was something refined about her posture, even in her bedraggled state. "The phone's over there," Marcus said, pointing to the old landline on the kitchen counter. Sophia hesitated. "Actually, I just realized I don't have anyone to call. The friend who was supposed to meet me was my ride, and I don't really know anyone else in the city." Marcus frowned. "What about your family?" Something flickered across Sophia's face. A brief shadow of pain. "It's complicated," she said quietly. The answer hung in the air between them. Marcus recognized the tone. It was the same way he'd learned to deflect questions about Sarah in the early days after her death. Some stories were too fresh, too painful to share with strangers. "Are you hungry?" Emma piped up. "Daddy's making mac and cheese. It's not very good, but it's not terrible either." "Emma," Marcus said with mild embarrassment. Sophia laughed, and the sound seemed to lighten the mood in the small apartment. "That sounds wonderful, actually, but I don't want to impose any more than I already have." "You're not imposing," Marcus found himself saying. "There's plenty." That wasn't exactly true. He'd been planning to stretch the single box of mac and cheese to cover both their dinners, but he could make it work. He always did. As they sat around the small kitchen table sharing the humble meal, Marcus found himself oddly comfortable with this stranger's presence. Sophia was quiet but engaged, listening to Emma's chatter about school and her best friend Jessica, asking thoughtful questions that made Emma beam with importance. "What do you do?" Marcus asked when Emma had finished her story about the class. "Hamsters escape." "I'm between things right now," Sophia said carefully. "I was working for my father's company, but we had a disagreement." Again, that guarded tone. Marcus didn't press Dot as the evening wore on. It became clear that Sophia had nowhere to go. She made several attempts to figure out alternative arrangements, calling what seemed to be taxi companies. Though Marcus noticed she never actually completed any calls. "Look," he finally said as Emma got ready for bed, "it's late, it's still raining, and you don't seem to have many options. Why don't you stay here tonight? You can take the couch, and tomorrow we'll figure out how to get you home." Sophia's eyes widened. "I couldn't possibly." "It's not a big deal," Marcus interrupted, though even as he said it, he wondered what he was doing. He'd never brought a stranger into his home before, especially not with Emma to consider, but something about Sophia felt safe, trustworthy. "Please," Emma added from the doorway, already in her pajamas. "It's scary to be outside in the storm." Sophia looked between Marcus and Emma, her expression soft with gratitude. "If you're sure it wouldn't be too much trouble." "It's settled then," Marcus said. He set Sophia up on the couch with spare blankets and pillows, apologizing for the lumpy cushions and the draft from the window. She assured him it was perfect, that he was being incredibly kind. After Emma was tucked into bed with her usual 3 stories and 2 glasses of water, Marcus returned to the living room to find Sophia standing by the window, looking out at the rain-soaked street below. "Thank you," she said without turning around. "You don't know what this means to me." "We all need help sometimes," Marcus replied. He studied her profile in the dim light from the kitchen. There was something almost aristocratic about her features, a refined elegance that seemed at odds with her current circumstances. "Can I ask you something?" Sophia said. Finally facing him, Marcus nodded. "Aren't you worried about letting a complete stranger stay in your home with your daughter here?" The question caught Marcus off guard with its directness. "Should I be?" Sophia smiled sadly. "No, but most people would be more cautious." "I've learned to trust my instincts," Marcus said. "They're usually right about people." "What do they tell you about me?" Marcus considered this. "That you're running from something, but not toward trouble. That you're used to having more than you do right now, and that despite whatever's going on in your life, you're a good person." Sophia's eyes misted over slightly. "You're very perceptive. You pick up on things when you're raising a kid alone. You have to read people quickly." "Where's Emma's mother?" Sophia asked gently. "She died 3 years ago." "Cancer?" "I'm sorry." "Thank you." Marcus had learned to accept condolences gracefully, though they still stung. "What about your family, the complicated situation you mentioned?" Sophia was quiet for a long moment. "My father and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. He has very specific ideas about how I should live my life, and I've been trying to figure out who I am separate from his expectations." "That's brave," Marcus said. "Is it? Sometimes it feels more like selfishness." "Standing up for yourself is never selfish." Emma's going to have to learn that lesson someday too. They talked for another hour, sharing stories carefully edited to avoid the deepest wounds. Sophia told him about growing up feeling like she was living someone else's life, about always being expected to fulfill roles that never quite fit. Marcus shared the challenges of sudden single parenthood, the way grief and responsibility had reshaped his entire world. When they finally said goodnight, Marcus felt like he'd made a genuine connection with another human being for the first time in months. He woke the next morning to the smell of coffee and the sound of Emma giggling. In the kitchen, he found Sophia making pancakes while Emma sat on the counter, apparently serving as sous chef. She knows how to make them into shapes, Emma announced proudly, pointing to a pancake that vaguely resembled a butterfly. "I hope you don't mind," Sophia said, looking slightly embarrassed. Emma was awake, and I thought. "It's wonderful," Marcus said, and meant it. The kitchen felt warmer somehow, more alive than it had in a long time. As they ate breakfast, Sophia seemed more relaxed than she had the night before. She was funnier too, making Emma laugh with silly voices and dramatic faces. Marcus found himself laughing as well, surprised by how natural it felt. "I should probably figure out how to get home," Sophia said eventually, though she didn't sound particularly eager. "Where exactly do you live?" Marcus asked. Sophia hesitated. "Beacon Hill." Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. Beacon Hill was one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the city. The fact that Sophia lived there but had somehow ended up stranded with no money was becoming more puzzling by the moment. Before he could ask more questions, there was a sharp knock at the door. Through the peephole, Marcus saw two men in expensive suits standing in the hallway. "Are you expecting someone?" he asked Sophia. The color drained from her face. "I think they're here for me." Marcus opened the door cautiously. "Can I help you?" "We're looking for Sophia Wellington," the taller man said. "We have reason to believe she might be here." Wellington. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Wellington Industries was one of the largest corporations in New England. Richard Wellington was famous for his business empire and his philanthropic work. Marcus had seen his picture in the newspaper countless times. Sophia appeared behind Marcus, her posture resigned. "Hello, James." "Miss Wellington," James said with obvious relief. "Your father has been very worried." Marcus turned to stare at Sophia. Sophia Wellington, daughter of one of the richest men in the city, the woman who'd shared his humble mac and cheese dinner, who'd slept on his lumpy couch, who'd made butterfly pancakes with his daughter. "You're Richard Wellington's daughter," he said quietly. Sophia met his eyes, her own filled with something that looked like shame. "Yes, I need to pack," she said. Turning away as Sophia gathered her things, Marcus struggled to process this revelation. The refined mannerisms, the expensive clothes, the mysterious family complications. It all made sense now. Emma, oblivious to the tension, hugged Sophia goodbye. "Will you come back and make more butterfly pancakes?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. At the door, she turned to Marcus one final time. "Thank you for everything. You and Emma, you gave me something I didn't know I needed." "What's that?" A reminder of what real kindness looks like. Marcus watched from the window as Sophia got into a black sedan. That probably cost more than he made in 2 years. She looked up at the window once, waved, and then was gone. 3 days passed. Marcus found himself thinking about Sophia more than he expected. Emma asked about her twice, wondering if she was okay, if she was still sad about whatever had made her cry. On Thursday evening, there was another knock at the door. This time, Marcus wasn't surprised to see Sophia standing in the hallway, but he was surprised by what she was carrying: grocery bags and a manila envelope. "I come bearing actual food this time," she said with a tentative smile. And something else. Inside the envelope was a check that made Marcus's hands shake. The amount would cover 6 months of rent, plus Emma's school expenses, plus the car repairs he'd been putting off. "I can't accept this," he said immediately. "Yes, you can. Sophia said firmly. You helped me when you had nothing to gain and everything to risk. You let a stranger into your home because you saw someone who needed help. That's what people do for each other. No, Sophia said, it's what good people do, and there aren't nearly enough good people in the world. Marcus looked at the check again, thinking of all the stress it would eliminate, all the opportunities it would create for Emma. Why? Because 3 days ago, I was ready to walk away from my family forever. I was angry and hurt and convinced that everyone with money was selfish and calculating. Then I met you and Emma. She paused, looking around the small apartment that had become briefly, unexpectedly, a sanctuary. You didn't help me because you thought you'd get something out of it. You helped me because it was the right thing to do. You reminded me that kindness isn't about how much money you have. It's about how much heart you have. What does this mean for you? Marcus asked. With your father. Sophia smiled, and for the first time since he'd met her, it reached her eyes completely. It means I'm going back, but on my terms. I'm going to use the resources I have to help people like you. People who are doing everything right but just need a little support to keep going. And the butterfly pancakes? I was hoping those could become a regular thing, Sophia said. If you'll have me? Marcus looked at Emma, who was already tugging on Sophia's hand. Chattering about the new drawing she'd made, he thought about the empty evenings, the quiet dinners, the weight of carrying everything alone. I think we'd like that very much, he said, as Sophia unpacked groceries and Emma helped by getting in the way. Marcus reflected on the strange turns life could take. 3 days ago, he'd opened his door to a stranger. Tonight, it felt like he was welcoming home a friend. Sometimes the best gifts came disguised as problems. Sometimes helping someone else was really helping yourself. And sometimes the people who seemed to have everything were the ones who needed the most basic human kindness of all. The rain had stopped, Marcus noticed. Outside, the first stars were beginning to appear in the clearing sky.